Cotton, please.
Thank you all for your appearance here today. Congratulations on your nominations. Mr. Calvelli, is space a warfighting domain today?
Senator Cotton, I believe that we created the United States Space Force, so I would imagine it can be considered a warfighting domain.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think the fact that we created it might suggest that we're a little bit behind the curve when it comes to engaging in that domain relative to Russia and China. Wars typically are not won just on the defense, right?
Right.
It's a combination of defense and offense. So do you believe that we need offensive space capabilities to be predominant in space?
I believe we need whatever capability that we can get that's going to protect our assets. I think that a day without space would be a really bad day for our country, whether that's in peacetime or in crisis and conflict. We need to make sure our space assets are always available for our warfighters and for our nation.
And it's fair to say that we depend on those space assets even more than does Russia or China, because we would be fighting away games against either of those countries, and they'd be fighting home games, right?
At this point in time, yes, sir, I think you are correct.
Yeah. So it's very important that we be able to defend everything that we have, both defend our legacy systems and that we design our satellites and other space assets going forward in a way that make them even more defensible.
I agree with that, Senator.
In every other domain, I think it's true in space, we have to be able to hold China and Russia's assets at risk as well with offensive capabilities.
I agree.
So the DoD is unfortunately littered with a lot of expensive programs that have gone wrong, where the taxpayer doesn't get what we paid for, and sometimes that's due to immature technology. Sometimes it's due to the leadership and management of programs. Sometimes, maybe every now and then, it's due to a little bit of congressional meddling and parochial politics back home. But are you going to be willing to take a sharp eye looking at all the programs we have, and if necessary, to end programs that aren't performing and that are not delivering value for the taxpayer and the capabilities that our troopers need on the ground and in the air?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I am a firm believer on delivering programs on cost, on schedule, meeting our requirements. And if there's programs that are awry or not heading in the right direction, I have no problem either taking corrective action or terminating them. Well,
thank you. I know that you served a great career in the intelligence community, concluding at the NRO, and I look forward to you being an outstanding Assistant Secretary.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Parker, several members of Congress earlier this year, including myself, commissioned an oversight report about Navy culture. Have you had a chance to read that report?
Senator, I have not read that report.
Okay. I'll send it to you. I encourage you to read it. We didn't do it ourselves. We just asked retired flag officers to review it. I provided it to the Secretary as well. And as a former surface combatant commander, I think he agreed with a lot of what we found. Unfortunately, the report found that 94% of sailors interviewed believe that the Navy suffers from a crisis in leadership and culture. This is especially true of the surface Navy. Some specific issues raised were an insufficient focus on warfighting skills, a culture of micromanagement, a zero risk and zero defect mentality that ended up jettisoning careers of chiefs or officers who'd served 20 or 30 years because they made a single mistake, and just the crushing administrative and paperwork regime. As you can see, those aren't really political issues or partisan issues. It's all about the kind of burdens we put on sailors and the distractions they face when they should be training for and operating in a warfighting environment. Could you please share your thoughts about all these non-combat related training programs and additional administrative tasks? Do you think these things are excessive? What can we do to reduce them? What specific kind of trainings might we consider eliminating and get sailors back focused on warfighting?
Senator, and thank you for your leadership on this issue, and I will review your report. I believe our surface warfare officers are absolutely critical to everything that the Navy needs to accomplish, and to readiness, and to the ability to have that worldwide deployable force. Issues of culture are deeply important in ensuring that our SWOs really have the ability to perform those duties and are best positioned to do so. I understand these are areas that the Navy is looking at very closely. in terms of talent management and the requirements on officers, as well as the manning piece, which I think is big as well, making sure there's adequate manning so that our officers can perform and they aren't overly fatigued. I agree with you on concerns with regard to a zero defect mentality. There are high standards that must be maintained, but there needs to be a balance because at the same time, everyone does make mistakes. So how do you really make that balance? But Senator, if confirmed, I will absolutely take these issues seriously, and we'll work very closely with the Navy to help ensure we have the healthiest culture for our surface warfare officers.
All right. Good. Thank you. My time's expired, but why don't we connect after you've had about 90 days on the job and talk about what you've learned, what we can take forward. I mean, our young men and women, they join the Navy for excitement and danger and adventure, whether they grew up sailing in New England or they grew up in the mountains of Arkansas and never seen the oceans and want to get out and see the world. We don't want to PowerPoint them to death. We want them to be ready to fight and therefore deter the war of the future on the high seas. So maybe about 90 days after you're on the job, we'll have a check-in.
I will be happy to do that, Senator.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cotton. Senator Hawley, please.